Face with me in the studios, I have the Chief Operations Officer of Reef Check Malaysia, and she is Theresa Ng. Good morning, Theresa.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Love your energy, love your smile, love the vibe that you bring in. And you are today going to talk to us about corals in danger. So today, by the end of this conversation, we'll have a deeper and better understanding on what is endangering our corals in our waters. And that's the thing that makes exploring underwater unique, isn't it? Right? To explore the corals. My closest exposure, or rather venture into learning about the corals, was when I was in school. I was used to go to the National Library, and then they had an exhibition on the Great Barrier Reef.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, so that was the thing, and I realized that, wow, the Great Barrier Reef, such a huge coral that's a living organism that is being preserved very carefully by the Australian government. And good to know that people like you, your folks over in Reef Check Malaysia, are doing everything you can as well. So let's start off by jumping headfirst into this, by setting the scene and understanding how significant is Malaysia's coral reef when it comes to a global perspective.
Well, Malaysia is really, really lucky to have such rich marine biodiversity.
Yeah.
And globally, we are, we have 1.3% of the total coral reefs globally, a number of species available. So, coral reefs are, they provide lots of opportunities in terms of environmental protection as well as economic contributions. For example, many tourists come to Malaysia to experience diving and snorkeling in our beautiful marine life, and that's from coral reefs, right? It's coral reefs provide habitats for fisheries, your marine life, so it's a job opportunity for local communities in fishing, for example. It's also actually breaks waves. So it offers coastal protection against beach erosion.
So it's a very important component in the marine ecosystem, simply put it that
Definitely.
way. And what makes our coral reef special in this part of the world, Theresa?
Well, Malaysia is actually part of the Coral Triangle. So it's a region that encompasses our neighboring countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and even Timor-Leste.
Wow.
So it's an area which has like the most number of coral reefs in the world. More than 500 coral species. I think that is about like 76% of global total.
Wow.
And in that sense as well, it's a habitat for all the fisheries. So about 37% of coral fish species are in this region.
And talk to us about the diversity, the range of these coral reefs, and where does Malaysia fit in this diversity?
Well, we have about 3,600 square kilometers of reefs in Malaysia. And like I mentioned, it's like 1.3% of the global total. So, and we are a small country, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that shows how much we have to offer.
Okay. And where is it concentrated the most? In the Straits of Malacca, the South China Sea, which all over?
All over, but also specifically the east coast of Peninsula Malaysia.
Right.
As well as Sabah and Sarawak region.
I see. Okay. Very interesting. Now that we set the scene, let's jump in for a quick break, Theresa. And then when we come back, we will discover and find out more about something that has been affecting our corals recently, coral bleaching. That's something that I came across, and our producer Lisham also briefed me about it. But it'll be nice to get you to give us a picture. And the next song that I have is a song that is especially for you, since I heard that you grew up in the Spice Girls era. So here's Wannabe by Spice Girls. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and TRAXXfm listeners of all ages. This is Face to Face on Trax Momentum. I'm Anil on the mic, and I'm also joined by my producer Lisham and Chentha. And today, with us in the studios, we have the Chief Operations Officer of Reef Malaysia. Her name is Theresa, and she's speaking to us about our corals that are in danger. Theresa, welcome back to Face to Face.
Thank you.
Now, I read somewhere that recently there was a coral bleaching incident, and I have to refer to this. Our coral were affected with this bleaching incident between April and June due to increased sea surface temperatures. Describe this to us, Theresa.
Well, bleaching happens when corals are stressed. So they actually expel a tiny algae that lives in their tissues, and that causes the white calcium carbonate skeleton to appear. That does not mean that the corals are dead yet. Yet. So it's just a stress response. So what happens is they lose their food source, which is from the algae that they expel. So if it's a prolonged bleaching, then there is mortality involved. But currently, they are in sort of like a starvation diet.
I see. So is to best describe, because I've seen videos and pictures of corals that looked pretty bleached, like they don't really look natural, like how you would see a beautiful, healthy-looking coral. It's vibrant colors and, waving underwater. Some of them look really dried up with some patches. So those are the corals that have suffered bleaching.
Correct. The white that you see on the corals, that is them bleaching.
I see.
Yeah, that's just showing that we are stressed, help.
So that's them crying out for help. And how do you describe the current bleaching incident that happened here?
Currently, it's actually a mass coral bleaching. So it's not just in Malaysia.
Globally.
Globally. It's a global phenomenon now. And that's due to the increase in temperatures you've experienced recently yourself. Yep, global warming impacts of climate change. So, what we can do is continue to monitor to see the extent of the bleaching that's happening at the moment.
Okay. And as Reef Malaysia, your organization, how do you gauge the severity of this bleaching incident? How do you, what sort of measures, what matrices do you use? How do you, give yourself an indication that it's at an alarming rate?
Yeah, right now we can't tell the extent of it yet because the bleaching event is still happening. However, we've done some monitoring surveys, and at some places in Malaysia, it's like more than 80% of the corals are bleached, which is very worrying.
Okay.
But until the end of the bleaching event, that's when we do more monitoring to see how many survive this phenomena, and what's the mortality rates.
Okay. Now, I want you to give us a picture on the impact that such an incident, because we have listeners who are listening right now. People who have exposure to this might understand the intensity and the importance of this. But for the benefit of people who are new to this, how do you think this will impact us as a country in the short term, over the long run? And why? Why, Theresa, from your words? Why is it that we need to be bothered? We need to be concerned about this?
Well, if prolonged bleaching, coral reefs will die. And that's when your habitats for your marine fishes will also disappear. So without the habitat, there'll be no fishes. It's an important food security for us. Malaysians eat a lot of seafood, right? It's one of our main food source.
Right.
It also impacts on livelihoods for the coastal communities. People who are fishermen, people who are working in tourism industries, especially in the diving and snorkeling industries as well.
I see. Okay. Today on Face to Face on Trax Momentum, I'm speaking to the Chief Operations Officer of Reef Malaysia. She's Theresa Ng, and she's speaking to us about our corals in danger. And just a while ago, we understood about this coral bleaching incident and how important is it that we have to play our part because there are many people who rely on marine life for their day-to-day, livelihood. We're going to jump in for a quick break. When we come back, we will resume with this discussion on Face to Face. Don't go anywhere. Right here on Trax Momentum. Welcome back to Face on Tracks Momentum. I'm Anil on the mic, and face to face with me in the studios today, I have Theresa Ng. She's the Chief Operations Officer of Reef Malaysia. Theresa, welcome back to Face. Now, a while ago, before the break, we spoke about coral bleaching, the severity of it, which is basically the aftermath of how the corals look like. You described that to us. And during the break, you mentioned that you've had your own set of adventures and experiences of exploring parts of the country and seeing our corals before they get bleached. So give us a picture of what we've missed out due to this bleaching. Talk to us about the beauty of our corals, Theresa.
Well, it's really hard to describe unless you experience it yourself.
Yes.
But perhaps I can tell you my first time going scuba diving.
Go ahead.
This was many years ago.
Nice.
Off the coast of Johor.
Okay.
It's very mesmerizing. You go in underwater, and you're a bit scared because it's first time breathing underwater. It's not familiar.
Yeah.
But you look around and you see like the colorful coral reefs, the diverse species of marine life. You see fishes, the little Nemos. People call them
the
Nemos, but
Nemos.
actually clownfishes.
Clownfishes.
Yeah. And you see turtles, sharks, and it's amazing. And you feel, like you're so small in this part of the world, right? We have the earth is huge, the environment is beautiful, and we are just a small speck in the bigger things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you, that adventure over the coast of Johor was, and what was the, so to say, let's look at the other end of it, the worst, where you felt so sad for the corals, like this really shouldn't be the case. Like you really felt like you really need to ramp up your efforts so that this comes to an end. Yeah.
It's really sad when you see dead corals when you're diving or even snorkeling. From colorful reefs, you see just brown, almost rock-like looking, and there's no marine life. There's no more little fishes around. You don't see your turtles and sharks because it's their food source, right? And once they're gone, it's gone, right? And I've seen the impacts of, destruction of coral reefs. Could be fish bombing. It's just all, scattered.
Sorry,
Fish bombing.
What is fish bombing?
It's an unsustainable fishing methods.
Okay.
That is illegal in Malaysia.
Right.
Illegal in most parts of the world. But what they do is they drop a homemade bomb into the sea, so it explodes, and all the fishes would float up, die and float up. So it's easy for you to catch.
And that sort of hurts the corals as well, damages them as well.
Yeah, because once they're broken, they just smash and shatter. So they will not be able to, recover.
Sad.
Yes.
Wow. Any way we can minimize this coral bleaching, Theresa? Sounds like we need to do something for them, for the corals. They're helpless. They're just there living underwater and helping all of the other marine life, thrive and sustain themselves. What can we do?
Well, it's really hard to reverse once coral bleaching starts, really. But what we can try to do in the meantime is try to limit human impact. So, for example, when you're diving and snorkeling, be careful in the areas that you are diving and snorkeling. Do not accidentally step on them or kick them, which puts additional pressures on them. You could also think about, reducing the access to these sites, maybe closing off certain important resilient sites off to the public. So no diving and snorkeling there, no fishing in these areas, just for a few weeks, not for a long term, just to help them recover, just to, remove some of the stresses involved. So for example, when you are sick, when we are sick, if you put on additional stress, you don't get better quicker, right?
They're living organisms anyway. Treat them like one.
Exactly,
right?
Yes.
I remember, because we have another show called W Talk where I speak to inspiring women who have done great things. And I spoke to an underwater photographer, and she has had amazing experiences taking pictures over the Great Barrier Reef and sharks and so on. And she said the number one no-no when you go underwater is to never touch the sea life. Don't touch them, which includes corals as well.
Exactly.
Your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
Anything to add on to that? Yeah.
How do you feel if someone comes to you and starts poking you?
Yes.
Right? Or start chasing you for a photograph, right? That's why people don't like paparazzi, right?
So don't try to, encroach into the space of a turtle, a sea turtle. Don't try to touch him or her. Don't touch the shark. So the corals as well. Just stay away from touching
Just
them.
observe them, appreciate their beauty. But don't go poking them.
And how long does it normally take for corals to recover? What's the time frame we're looking at?
It's tricky to say.
Okay.
So we're really hoping that the water temperature would decrease or cools down in the near future, and then the corals can start to recover. So it's really hard to tell unless once the sea surface temperatures lessen, then there is chance for recovery.
Right. Okay. Theresa, thank you so much for setting aside your time. It was a very enriching conversation as what we aim to achieve in all of our face-to-face segments. Now, I'm sure our listeners would be very interested to find out more about this, especially if they have young kids who have deep fascination or affinity to sea life. Where can they go and get information, Theresa?
Well, for starters, you can check out our website,
Which is?
www.reefcheck, reefcheck.org.my, or our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram. So we've got a lot of resources and information, educational stuff on them.
Okay. And I also have made an assessment over the last 30 minutes of you that you are a very passionate person and you're able to speak about this, because we have very little people like you on planet Earth who care about, things that we sort of overlook at times. People would say, yeah, so what? It's a coral. It's over there. I'm living on land. I've got 101 problems in my head as well. But it's people like you who come by and, sort of slice through thin butter with a hot knife and make us realize, give us a sort of a rain check and say, look, there are things out there that need our attention. And the smallest of impact that we do, smallest of things that we do can have the largest of impact. Any final words from you before we let you go for the day, Theresa?
Well, I guess, as individuals, what you can do when you go on island holidays is to choose sustainable tourism operators, dive operators who are part of Greenfin's program, which is, they're dedicated to environmentally friendly practices, eco-friendly snorkel operators, as well as, do you know that the sunscreen you use could affect coral reefs as well? So choose reef-safe sunscreens when you go out to the ocean.
Quick crash course, the appropriate sunscreen that we should be using so that we don't affect the corals underwater.
There are lots of brands out there. Some of them have the Reef-Safe logo on them.
Okay.
You can also check the list of ingredients that they have.
Okay.
And if you go to our website or Instagram pages, there's a list of toxic chemicals that should not be in your sunscreen.
See, like I said, little did we know the smallest of things that we do can have the major impact on corals, just like using sunscreen, right? Sunscreen can actually affect the corals, and we learned that today on Face to Face. Theresa, thank you very much for setting aside your time. I really look forward to seeing you again in the studios. You opened up our minds and made us realize that the corals there really need our attention. And you have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And that's a wrap for today's edition of Face to Face on TRAXX Momentum. If you missed out on this interview, you can always catch the replay by visiting our official Facebook page or TRAXXfm Official's YouTube channel. And since we're talking about marine life and nature, I thought I couldn't find a better song than to play you Heal the World by Michael Jackson. Isn't it, Theresa?
Yes.